end of the season and eventually the lottery in May. So let's welcome in our next guest. You can catch him on Utah Jazz pre-half and post-game shows with Jake Scott. It is Coach Tim LaComb. What's going on, Tim?
Hey, Ben. How are you?
I'm doing terrific. Thank you for jumping on. First of all, I guess let's address the fine. Let's address the $500,000 fine. The NBA did, quote-unquote, drop the hammer on the Jazz. That's one of the bigger fines I remember, especially when it comes to tanking. That was very aggressive.
Yeah, it was really aggressive. And the only thing I can say is that, I've been sitting in the chair watching 82 games a year for 6 years. And, I just think it's rich, because this is not something new. And obviously what the league's in this instance is trying to do is, I guess, decide who you're going to play and when. I mean, it just gets into some crazy stuff, especially given the history of the league, how Oklahoma City is where they are. And so I just find it all pretty rich. And, I'm just like, I love that there's actually some dialogue and some pushback because I think that's where you get change.
I'm like you. I mean, I watch the league every night, just like you. I've watched every Jazz game for 15 straight years. I watch a lot of games on my off nights. I think there's no doubt that tanking is a problem. I don't think that's anybody's argument. I think it, and I don't actually have a problem with the NBA starting to enforce rules now that they didn't previously enforce. Like, at some point, if you want to make a change, you just have to say today's the day we're going to start. I just wonder if the NBA is really willing to throw down the gauntlet and start punishing every team that, quote unquote, has the intent or goes into a game with the intent of not winning, because that's every Sacramento Kings game for the rest of the year. I mean, that's every Dallas Mavericks game for the rest of the year. That word intent was really, it's carrying a lot of weight. And I hope, honestly, that Adam Silver enforces it if that's the line he's going to draw in the sand.
For sure. And the other thing is I really do believe that, everybody's trying to do it their way, but I really actually love the way the Jazz through this time have developed players, which was the goal, and the fact that Will Hardy, and you've seen this, Ben, he'll start guys, that deserve to start through their work, and giving them that opportunity. He'll bring guys in and close games that's not their role per se, but that's happened a lot over the last 4 years. And I think the biggest thing is I just believe that a coach knows his team, and like the whole idea of a minutes restriction for Lowry that night. I mean, that's the part of this that is, it's kind of overreaching, I think, from a league standpoint, because the coach still got to be able to coach his team, and you've still got to have a plan to execute. And everybody knows what's going on anyway. I mean, it's not like it's like the old before NIL. What schools had a bag man, and if you look really closely, you'll see some schools that have dropped off from their future or their past time, and they're not doing as well now. So the bottom line is, again, this has been going on forever, and it's just as you said, a huge fine to bring down on a team as if they're the first team to ever have situations where they're trying to develop young guys, and in the interim, get better by getting a better pick.
Now, Jazz fans don't need to own this. Now, Jazz fans they wear their team's jersey proudly, and it's a personal matter with Jazz fans, and that's the truth with every fan in every state. But I do think this does put a bizarre and almost picked on feeling for Jazz fans after what had been a really fun week. The tanking has been horrible. The rebuild has been horrible. It's been difficult for fans to watch. I think they finally feel like there's some things breaking their way. Jaren Jackson Jr. comes to Utah, seems excited about being here, seems to work really well on the floor right away. And now the NBA seems to be nitpicking what the Jazz are doing. And I think that is going to put a sour taste in Jazz fans' mouth down the stretch of the season. And I think that's unfortunate.
It will down the stretch of the season, but I think overall it galvanizes the fans. I mean, I tweeted out, I was so fired up afterwards. I tweeted out, "I'm with him, Bobby," after Ryan did his thing, because I think it does. If you watch this team and you know what this organization's about, they're no different than every other team. They're looking to try to get an advantage, but I do really respect wholeheartedly the way that Will Hardy's approached this. It's not an easy thing for a coach to go through. And, he's made it about business. He's made it about getting better. He's tried to really establish a culture, which I think, play hard and passes are those famous words. And if this team isn't that, I don't know what they are. This team plays hard. They play together. They're not always necessarily in the right spots, and there's guys that are still on that learning track. But, Will Hardy has that locker room, and that was the goal.
I don't necessarily want to burst Jazz fans' bubble. I get it. I do think the level of defense they played after 3 games with Jaren Jackson Jr. is slightly inflated. I think everybody was excited. I think it's the dog days of the NBA. I think they played some particularly mediocre or outright lousy opponents. So the defensive numbers are going to look really good, though I do think Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to make a big impact. Do you think they will be dramatically better next year defensively, or do you think this was kind of a temporary boost that they were riding off of a high of getting Jaren Jackson Jr. in the building for the first time?
I think there's probably a little of both, but I do believe it's going to be vastly improved. You just improve so much by personnel, and if the Jazz have Walker Kessler and are able to anchor the middle with him, and then Jaren being able to be that kind of silent issue from the weak side that exists, and another huge body that you've got to navigate, but also very switchable guy, which is so good for a defense. I think, the added experience and off season for Ace will make him better. His instincts to guard are really good. And he's actually done a nice job in a lot of isolation situations against a NBA scorer, and done a nice job at just doing the right things and, not fouling. That's probably the area for him. He needs to get more disciplined on that. Leaves his feet a little bit, on shot fakes and reaches. So just becoming more sound. And then I do believe Keontae's about it. I watched it this year. That dude, he transformed a lot of things, but his defensive understanding, effort, want to, detail, all that stuff's gotten so much better. So yeah, I think they're going to be vastly improved, but at the same time, vastly improved to be 15th in the league. And so there's always going to be work to do.
Jazz are sitting on 18 wins. How many do they have by the end of the season?
It's so hard for me to know because of what you just said. The irony of all this is Sacramento may have put the worst lineup I've ever seen in the history of man out that night. JP was doing the game with me, JP Chunga, who calls the Stars games, and he filled in for Jake Scott. But I said, seriously, JP, me, you, Jamil, Ron Boone, and David Locke. I think we get this one. I think we do.
I'm going to pencil in 23. I had 22 early.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to let you do that because I'm.
Yeah, sure. I get it.
I have the hardest time even knowing, I get there, I'm like, I wonder what's going to happen tonight.
All right, Coach, we appreciate you jumping on. Enjoy your All-Star break, and we'll listen to you on the other side.
All right, you're the best. Thanks.